Hey y'all, Lisa Davis here, and I want to talk about the irony. Okay? The irony. Because nothing screams hypocrisy louder than Donald Trump, a man whose company was literally found guilty of fraud, whose CFO sat in jail for cooking the books, whose organization had to cough up millions in fines, turning around and accusing Black women in power of misconduct. Yep, we're talking about it. My name is Lisa Davis. I am the trusted banker, and I teach people how to build generational wealth using banking products and services. So, like I said, we're talking about New York Attorney General Letitia James, who held him accountable in court. And we're talking about Lisa Cook, a brilliant Black economist sitting on the Federal Reserve Board who Trump tried and failed to remove. How wild is it that a man with fraud convictions, this is what kills me. How can somebody that was convicted of fraud and ignored the convictions, his name has been orbiting around in the ecosphere, in the stratosphere, in the worldly sphere, and now he wants to play law and order when it comes to educated, accomplished Black women in leadership. Now, we know these ladies did not do any mortgage fraud. And I find it ironic and I find it kind of funny. I'm wondering, did Trump even know what mortgage fraud was before he was convicted of it? You know? And now that he was convicted of it, and it's typical Trump. It's typical Trump playbook that he likes to find other people guilty of the crimes he committed. So let's start with Trump's record. In 2022, his CFO, Alan Weisselberg, pled guilty to 15 felony counts of tax fraud. How can your CFO be guilty of tax fraud, but you're not? This wasn't speculation. He went to jail. He was like 70 something years old and he went to jail. He didn't spend a lot of time in jail, but he did go to jail. The Trump organization itself was convicted of 17 felony counts. Tomato, tomato, Trump organization, Donald J. Trump. It's the same thing. So, yeah, okay, the Trump organization was found guilty, but whose organization is Trump organization? So, when they were fined $1.6 million, the Trump administration, the Trump organization, because they had not one, not two, but 17 felony counts against them. And while Trump himself dodged criminal charges in that case, he was found liable for civil fraud along with Don Jr. and Eric Trump. That means he wasn't innocent. He was found responsible for lying about his assets to banks and tax authorities. He lost the civil case. He was found guilty. And if you look at the documents, myself as a former lender and a banker of 25 years, he absolutely cooked the books. It wasn't even hard to figure out if you know and understand how to read mortgage documents, lending documents, and tax documents. It was ridiculous. So when we talk about fraud, Trump's name isn't even next to it once. It's next to it over and over and over again. He just simply ignores it and then he goes and finds somebody that he could pin it on. Right. So now, fast forward to today, instead of accepting accountability, Trump is turning his energy toward attacking Black women who are actually upholding the law, protecting our economy. Letitia James, New York's Attorney General, didn't just talk tough. She proved in court that Trump inflated his wealth so to score better loans and insurance terms. That's called fraud, plain and simple. She did her job. Lisa Cook, an economist with more degrees and expertise than Trump could dream of, sits on the Federal Reserve Board. She's literally tasked with protecting the stability of our financial system. Trump tried to fire her and lost. The courts blocked his attempt. And now here's where it gets even more dangerous. The Fed just lowered interest rates yesterday. September 17th, the Fed lowered rates. And with Trump's allies in place, the pressure is mounting. The Senate GOP just confirmed secretly on Monday Stephen Miran to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. And I'm still trying to figure out how do we have a vacancy. So now the GOP has put one of their guys on the Board of Governors. So now there's 3 appointed by a Republican president, 3 appointed by a Democratic president, and the rest are all neutral. They are there. And guess what he's doing? Stephen Miran just showed up this week. He was confirmed Monday. The Fed had a meeting to lower rates Wednesday. and he's pushing Trump's agenda. He's demanding the Fed slash rates by 3% by the end of the year down to 2.9%. That is Trump's. He is fixated on that number. He is literally fixated on that number. The Fed did lower the rate by like 1%. It went from 4.3 to 4.1. So it was a small shift because the economy is weak. He is worried about the economy weakness. So that's why he lowered the rates. However, spending hasn't cooled, so inflation is still up. And what the Fed is looking at, and most economists are looking at, is the weirdness around the fact that the job market, employment, and all of this has weakened. However, inflation is still going up because people are still spending. You don't cut the rates to 2.9% when people are still spending. So the Fed's going to wait to see how the tariffs play out, what happens next month, what spending looks like, what the job market looks like, what the economy, what employment looks like, and he'll make another decision. This is exactly what Trump did during COVID. He pressed the Fed into cutting rates aggressively. And what happened? Prices shot sky high. Inflation went through the roof, and our supply chains buckled under the weight. There's a reason why there's checks and balances. Trump doesn't like checks and balances. Trump just wants to do what Trump wants to do, and he doesn't understand repercussion or the effect in the future. He doesn't understand cause and effect. We had to deal with inflation after Trump slashed the rates during COVID and for so long. And that's what a lot of people complained about while Biden was in office. But Biden fixed it because Trump slashed the rates so low, spending was excessive, supply got lower, prices go up, inflation goes up. People were complaining. Biden got it back down. Now here we go with Trump again, wanting to cut it to 2.9. He's raising he's not doing anything that's cohesive to a stable economy. He's just not. But so let's bring it home. Let's talk about it. Let's get it straight. A man whose business empire was literally convicted of fraud, whose CFO went to jail, who himself was found liable for civil fraud, now wants to turn around and accuse educated, brilliant Black women of misconduct just because they hold him accountable or refuse to play by his rules. I wonder if he was ever held accountable as a child. It just seems like nobody's ever told him no. I don't get it. And you can't always think you're right. Like, he's never at fault. He's never wrong. He's never done anything. Yet everybody else is always wrong. These women are holding him accountable. The Fed is holding him accountable. And he's throwing a temper tantrum. At the very same time, he's stacking the Fed with allies who will risk our economy by repeating the same reckless rate cutting strategy that drove inflation through the roof during COVID. And that's not justice. That's not leadership. That's a double standard and a dangerous economic game. This is why we can't take Trump's word at face value. We have to do the research. We have to look at the record. We have to read up on what's going on in this economy and make sure that we're understanding all of the things that he's doing, because the record shows a man neck deep in fraud, pointing a finger at women who are simply doing their jobs while quietly setting up the Fed to make moves that could tank your wallet, your mortgage, and your grocery bill. That is dangerous for all Americans. So the next time you hear Trump railing about fraud or the economy, remember the receipts, because when it comes to fraud, he's not the prosecutor, he's the defendant. He lost. And when it comes to the economy, he's not the protector, he's the risk. That's your irony, plain and simple. My name is Lisa Davis. I am the Trusted Banker, and I will talk to y'all again soon. Bye.